Hi everyone, this is Pradeep from Sydney in Australia, welcoming you all to episode number 8 of GCC. And once again, what is GCC? Well, it's a very exclusive club, and you only come to know what GCC is when you are admitted into the GCC. Today, we have a very interesting set of speakers. We have people from Sydney and we have a contingent from UK. But let me also tell you what is coming forward in the coming weeks. Next Saturday, we've got a session focused on 1967 batch of IIT Delhi. That is on 18th of September. And what is on 25th? 25th, we will present to you the female alumni from IIT Delhi from Kailash Hostel. So stay tuned, and this is not just one session, but there are going to be series of sessions from different geographies, from different batches, from different themes, from different hostels, as we build a global platform, a value-driven platform which enables IIT Delhi alumni to connect with other alumni all over the world. So let's kickstart the session today, and the first speaker of the day today is Raju Varanasi, someone that I've known for quite a few years in Australia, someone who did his B.Tech from IIT Delhi in 80s, although his LinkedIn profile does not give the year. Well, I will ask him. He also did his IIM Bangalore, and at the right age of late 50s decided to go on and do his PhD. All along while having senior positions in various roles in education, training, and related areas. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Raju. Raju, where are you, my friend? How are you?
Good, thank you, Pradeep. I hope you all can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you for this.
Your voice is coming a bit faint. Is that the normal? No, that's all right. I was just joking. So I said, is that the normal, Raju? So tell us about which year did you finish IIT? When did you come to Australia? What are you doing now? But more importantly, what have you been doing since you passed out from IIT Delhi? So over to you, Raju.
Thanks, Pradeep, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good evening wherever you are. Thank you, Pradeep. I know Pradeep for well over 15 years now. And I've been in Sydney for 30 years. I came in 91. There's no secret. I finished in 1983.
So did you come in 1991 to Australia?
Yeah, I just finished 30 years.
But that's the same year that I also came to Australia.
In 91, yeah. We haven't crossed each other in the first 15 years. 78, 83, chemical engineering, Aravali. And I haven't heard the term Kailash for a long time. There was a time Kailash used to evoke certain segments. Now, anyway, being here, I first came basically to not only to be in a new country, but also to go and see.
Raju, something wrong, okay with the sound. Do you want to just check whether you want to come a bit closer? Or I don't know what is this thing, but I've tried to adjust my headphones, I've tried to adjust my sound, and I'm also getting messages on the chat.
Let me just see if I change. Is this any better?
Yeah, this is slightly better.
Yeah, this is better.
And can I ask everybody to mute themselves apart from the person who's speaking?
Yeah, I've changed the audio settings. If it's not clear, I'll change to another setting there were three, but this must be a bit clear.
Yeah, this is better.
Yeah. After chemical engineering, I went to IIM Bangalore um, after a stint in ONGC. So IIT Delhi, then ONGC, Bombay, and then went to IIM Bangalore. After IIM Bangalore, worked with Shaw Wallace and Mohan Meakin in India, and then because in IIT I was playing cricket all 5 years in the hostel, and I was captain for the Aravali team. I played for the IIT cricket team. I'm a big fan of cricket, so I decided that if I have to migrate, I migrate to Australia and go and watch cricket at MCG and the SCG. That was my passion. So that was the main reason to come to Australia, actually. Anyway, it's been good to me. I My first role was in. It just so happened that it was in chemical industry, but in education. And I've stayed now for 30 years in education. 91 came here. 97, I was lucky enough to be selected for Australian Fulbright scholarship to the US. So I spent 1 year in roughly in US exploring portability of qualifications, portability of skills in a fast changing world. That is how portable are skills rather than qualifications, which is a big difference in terms of whether you are engineer or technician or paraprofessional. Anyway, in 2001, I became director for the biggest department in Australia, which is the New South Wales Department of Education. But now, after putting so many years in education, I thought I might as well reflect on my learnings, and hence embarked on a PhD in 2015, which I completed in 2020. And the theme of that was transforming school systems using analytics, predictive analytics, and machine learning. So basically, you all would know that not many industries can boast of 12, 13 years of continuous data of a customer. But in school system, it is inbuilt. You come in kindy, you finish in year 12, you have 13 years of data of of an individual, or here a student, and not many school systems actually use the data for predictive purposes. It's mostly for reactive. After the event, after the exams, you go and see how many grades and what's up. But the thesis proved that you can actually two and a half years before your year 12, you can predict performance with the model accuracy of 93.6, which is pretty good. And actually, it is not so much that you can predict outcomes, but it's that you can actually use that to support the learner for their pathways. So that was the intent of the research. And
So
I'm
let
now
me ask you a few questions at this stage, and I'll start with your latest work that you've done. So, for everybody's information, Australia has three different education systems, especially at K to 12 level. One is the public school system, which is the equivalent of government schools. Number two is the Catholic education system, which, as the name implies, is run by Catholics and accounts for almost 30% of Australia's education system. Number three is independent schools, which is equivalent of private schools. Raju, in his last role, just before being the director for data intelligence in the Catholic education system, was also the CIO for the Catholic education systems. Raju, how accurate has been this system in identifying or predicting the future path of students? And has it been used for early intervention?
model can accurately predict the the predicted variable, which is the outcome variable, which was the HSC, the year 12 scores. But the intent is not that you can predict the year 12 scores, but if you know so much about a student 2.5 years before, why can't you use that to modify their pathways? Suppose someone wants to take a vocational program, someone wants to have a strong interest in art or music or sciences. So what we are trying to say is that if you know so much about the student, why don't you personalize the pathway rather than making them do everyone go through a traditional pathway of, try to get a high in maths and science and try to do the traditional way of getting into university. Because we have to accept that students today, kids today, have a multiplicity of vocations and professions. And I think the school systems are still very traditional, conventional, largely due to universities having a hold on entrance. So I'm actually working on the policy angle of and trying to question the unquestionable in a way that let's now change this traditional mode of trying to master an exam rather than actually fulfilling one's
Fabulous.
passion.
So has this been implemented across Catholic education system?
In our system, yes. In other systems, I think they are still a bit in reactive mode. That is, basically they are not questioning the traditional modes. What we are trying to say is there are students who are in year 10 and already getting university acceptances. Year 11, they're getting university acceptances. You don't have to wait until year 12. But the other thing is there are other students who in year 10 want to pick up hospitality or carpentry or art, and they are not inferior by any means. And those days are long gone when we always thought math science professions give this, and other occupations and other roles in society are there is no such.
So I think this is a very, very interesting subject, and I'll get you for a further presentation later down in one of the GCC series. But I also want to go back to one of your earlier roles before you joined Catholic education system. You were the COO for what is called as Education Services Australia, which is an entity which is owned by the Education Ministers of Australia. Now, what is ESA doing and what was your role with ESA?
I was the Chief Operating Officer, which is like number 2 under the CEO. Education services, basically, in short, for all our colleagues here, it's a federation of all school systems in Australia coming together for sharing resources. You can compete on service, you don't have to compete on products. And that's what we are trying to do. You don't have to compete on preparing resource materials online or otherwise for students, whether they are for teaching purposes or for learning purposes. That is for teachers or for students or for that matter, other allied professions like counselors and well-being, because well-being is a very big issue.
Was it also a platform for implementing technology into schools?
Yes, it's actually about technologies and digital platforms, because all sharing is now through digital platforms, and you can have role-based access and all that stuff. So what we were trying to do is invest once and reap everywhere, and try to actually improve service rather than every system trying to invest in products and platforms. And that means they can actually focus on the last mile of teaching and learning, which is actually instructional quality and the actual act of teaching and learning in classrooms or in classes, whether they are online or otherwise.
Let me now go over to yet one of your earlier roles, which was as director for TAFE. Now, for everybody's knowledge and info, for people who are not from Australia, Australia has a very, very strong vocational education system. And the number one dominant player in that is what we call as technical and further education, or TAFE. Now, TAFE are a series of entities which are owned by state governments in Australia. They are very large institutions, and some of the infrastructure they have is much better than what even some of the top IITs have in India. Now, as director of TAFE, which was into, you were also responsible for the largest online training platform. Now, can you tell us what do you see as the differences between skills training in India and in Australia?
Uh, very good question. Firstly, the skills, the vocational skills and the professions or the para-professions thereof, technician level or operator level, there is more respect in the Western world. Like a carpenter in India or a hospitality worker in India compared to the equivalent roles in society here, both in terms of earning power, recognition, and the actual standard of that particular vocation is much more well delineated. Registration, compliance, and actually the training. So I was on the training and registration and recognition of occupations and all that stuff. So the key difference is actually, unfortunately, in India, it is seen obviously second or even third round. But more importantly, those occupations in society have a significant contribution, but they have not been. So I know polytechnics.
Folks, can I ask everybody to be on mute? Otherwise, I will mute everybody.
I think polytechnics in India in the 60s, 70s, and probably 80s, but I've lost touch after that. We're trying to do that in electrical trades or in construction trades and so on. What basically we did in TAFE is that we not only had excellent training programs and certification, but also portability. And that's the one I worked on. I worked on science portability. Whether you're a technician in lab or in a food company or in a chemical company, although the tolerances and the specificity and sometimes the tools are different, but the actual science of what a laboratory technician does doesn't change. It used to be 5 different pathways. I basically made it into one broad pathway with only specialization at the end. Because a lot of generalization and a bit of specialization is actually a better way for the workers.
There is a lot to talk about you, Raju, and I even wanted to cover about, your PhD. But we have limited time, and the limited time, what I also want to understand is Raju as a person. Now, you used to play quite a lot of cricket. What has happened to that once you came to Australia?
Yeah, I played for first 10 years. And now I play badminton regularly and used to play squash also. But actually, Australia, obviously, everyone knows, has a lot of passion for cricket. I played on all those green, lush grounds, which is what my dream was. So I fulfilled my dream in terms of playing on lush green grounds. And then now I'm more following the cricket. I know today, unfortunately, the final test got cancelled, and those friends in UK would know more. It's very, very unfortunate. I was looking forward to it. But anyway, badminton is now my actual work recreation.
So, one last question. What made you at the ripe age of, if I am correct, you would be somewhere in the middle 50s when you started doing your PhD? So, are you what, a lifelong learner? Or is it your quest for knowledge? Or is it just to add another qualification? What made you go for the PhD?
Yeah, I'll share my reflections. We are all in different phases in life, I can understand. My first, obviously we have educational life, which is, rushing for getting qualifications. Then we have the economic life, trying to progress in career and looking after family. And then comes the third phase, which is what I call the philosophical or the ethical life. That means you reflect on life. I've been fortunate to see things like IITs, IIMs, Fulbright, and so on. And I thought, no, I have to encapsulate all this into a reflection. It's like writing a book, but I thought instead of doing a book, I probably do a PhD with my passion in education. So that's why I embarked on it. I have not taken a single day's leave. I've not gone to the university more than 2 times. Just 2 times I met my professor in person because he's in Newcastle and I'm in Sydney. The whole idea of this is actually like this, that obviously we're all working from home and online and people are learning from home and all that. But it has proven a point that you can follow your passion, you can reflect. So I'm in this past the educational, economic, now to the ethical or philosophical. I thought I'll just encapsulate. I was lucky I have a very good professor. And so that's the reason I just wanted to put it back to society in a way.
Love it, love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, now along with Maslow's theory, we will also study the three-phase theory which is propagated by Dr. Raju Varanasi. And with that, let's give a quick round of applause to Raju. Raju, it was lovely to catch up with you. And I would like to pick up on some of the themes. I would like to get you more involved into GCC and the global platform that you're wearing. I think there's a lot of stuff that you can add over there. And it's been really a delight knowing you as well as having you here today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
With that, now we move over to the second item of the agenda today, which is Meet the UK Alumni. And for kickstarting that and for giving an introduction, please give a round of applause to Professor ManMohan Sodhi, who is the ambassador for UK GCC. So, over to you, ManMohan.
Thank you, Pradeep. I'll first say a quick few words about myself. I don't want to take the whole hour talking only about myself. So there are 2 UK reps, Sri Vijay and myself. And one of the reasons for doing the UK session is to start off our UK chapter of the IIT Delhi Alumni Association, GCC. So we have 4 illustrious speakers and Sri Vijay and myself, so 6 of us together. Starting with the most important person, that would be me. I'll say I'm an 84 B.Tech mechanical engineering graduate from Nilgiri. Even while I was still working, still studying at IIT Delhi, I started working at an NGO designing mud stoves. Because I felt true India lay in the villages, and then mud stove efficiency is actually less than 1% when you think about how much fuel and the shortage of wood. And I was able to design mud stoves with more than 20% efficiency anyway. And then the 1984 massacre happened. And I was in Delhi and Chandigarh at that time, and that inspired me to study in the US. I did my PhD at UCLA in operations research and management science. This was a topic I studied at since 10th grade on my own, and also at UCLA, at IIT Delhi, I was able to get classes in operations research. So then I taught at University of Michigan for a while, but some of the executive MBA students were asking me about career advice, and I had never really had a corporate career. So I decided I would work in industry and come back to academia. So I worked in industry for about 7 years, something. And then, so I was at Accenture, first American Airlines, then Accenture. And then with the e-commerce bug, I joined a e-commerce consulting company, and then even worked at a startup. And then I hit age 40. It happens to everyone who's less than 40, I suppose. And my wife had gone to the UK and she didn't want to come back to the US. So rather than marrying again, I just followed her. And luckily I got a job at Cass Business School, part of City University of London. And I've been there since. So that's me. Sri Vijay is my co-conspirator in starting the IIT Delhi alumni chapter for the UK. He's He did his M.Tech at IIT Delhi and PhD in Academy of Sciences. And he's taken this unconventional route of combining science and spirituality. And he is therefore doing some practical research, integrating Vedic knowledge with modern sciences for the last 30 years. And he's been doing it in 50 countries. So he runs training courses, so unconventional career. So the other four speakers, wonderful, I shouldn't say other, but the four wonderful speakers we have today, we have Nagarajshree Rao, who goes by her pen name Aina. Aina meaning holding a mirror to the world. She's at KPMG and she's had a consulting career, including at Accenture, where I worked as well. And she's taken the unconventional route of continuing to write a blog, and she also has a book called The Ambling Indian Diaries, the Ambling Indian being also another of her pen names. She did her B.Tech at IIT Delhi, 91, if I recall, and then IIM Bangalore. Then we have two people who've taken the CEO route after working in corporate. One thing you'll see from all our speakers is we've all lived and worked in many countries or been around in the world. So Pawan Lokwani, he is from Karakoram. Nothing more needs to be said. And Nitish Jain also, I'll speak about him in a second, also from Karakoram, and they did overlap at IIT Delhi. So Pawan is now the CEO and a co-founder of RecruitmentSmart, which is a recognized market leader in CV scanning and using artificial intelligence and analytics for recruitment. And fascinating journey. And Harbir Nat also did his B.Tech. Pawan also went to ISB, where actually I teach now once a year. Harbir Nat went to Jwalamukhi, did his B.Tech in electrical engineering, and also IIM Calcutta. And he's working on a fascinating visionary plan for data centers in Africa now, and I hope he'll be able to talk a little bit about that. So first speaker is Aina, then Pawan, and then the third speaker is Nitish Jain, who overlapped with Pawan, and he's a professor at London Business School. He thought B.Tech was not enough, so he did a 5-year integrated master's at IIT Delhi in maths and computer science. Followed by ISB and then INSEAD, where he did his PhD and is now at London Business School. So these are our speakers. So Aina or Nagarajshree.
Thank you very
first,
much.
Then Pawan. Yeah. I'll just
what I want to ask you at this stage, ManMohan, is when were you recognized as among the top 10 academicians in operations management?
Oh, this was where was this? Last year or something? Some paper came out that looked at the publications and the impact of papers worldwide in operations and supply chain. And in the UK, there were 3 names. In Europe, I think there were 7, 8 altogether. And in the world, there were obviously a lot of people in the US, of course. But it was nice to have been noticed.
And the second thing that I have is that can we tell all the IITians that if they have a midlife crisis, they can all go to UK?
They can all go to UK and become professors in business schools.
Can you pass on the message?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, please give a round of applause for our dear ManMohan Sodhi. Yeah. Now, let's go across to another UK alumni, and the gentleman that I am, I have to go to ladies first. And ManMohan has been talking about somebody called Nagaraj, and I don't know what are all these long names and all that. I prefer to call her Aina. When I spoke to her, I said that, are you really Aina? Aina means mirror. And I remember that song. It was some Bollywood song, Shisha Ya Dil, something like that. I said, is that the same mirror that you all? He said yes. And it was fabulous to discover that she's, apart from her professional role, which she's at KPMG, apart from her family role, she also writes. And she's written books which have been, or which have done rather well on Amazon. So, to learn more about Aina, let's give a big round of applause to Aina from UK. Over to you, Aina. Tell us about who is the real Aina.
Okay, thank you very much, Pradeep ji, ManMohan, Vijay, for having me here. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm feeling very humbled. There were so many CEOs, chairmen, patani, such high-flying people here. But I'm just, I'm not even close to that. I'm not even an aspiring CEO of my own house. मेरे घर में भी flight चल रहा है. A lot of competition between husband and me. Who can be the
ये तो
CEO?
बहुत अच्छी बात है. I should show this video to my wife also. But anyway, back to you.
So I like to say that end of the day, nobody would, anybody or nobody would describe me better. It's very humbling to hear people have done so well in different fields. But I've had a very checkered career, and I suspect this might be the case with many women who passed out of IIT Delhi or generally who tried to pursue professional careers. So mine was very checkered. I started off doing an MBA, loving finance, hated civil engineering, loved finance, and then got into Unit Trust of India as a fund manager. Us time that was a big deal. New management trainee got 4,000 crores to manage, and it was a big kick. I did that several years, but then my kids were born, so I really took a back seat and then moved into risk and compliance for several years. And then somewhere along the line, I discovered this, that I had a passion or I had some creative kida in my brain. So I started writing. And fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, it was really a beautiful pouring of emotions. I was in UK for 10 years and then I had gone back to India. And then that whole thing, all the garbage, everything just came and struck me like this. I said, kya kar sakte hain yaar, kuch bhi nahi kar sakte. But then it came out like a creative instinct to start writing. And then I created this character called the ambling Indian, who is nothing but an arm aurat. She's a little stick figure. I've put the link there. And she is like R.K. Lakshman's common man, he never used to talk, if you remember. वो बड़े चुपचाप देखता रहता था while all this tamasha was going on. But being a woman, she will talk. And so her talking is her writing. And so I write 4 themes: Indian innovation, humor, life, and more. Everything with a very quirky twist to it. And then the first book that I wrote, Ambling Indian Diaries, was a completely hilarious take on India. So 31 stories and all like, laugh out loud. People from 8-10 years of old kids to 80-year-old somebody's father and all, I've seen them like, reading and chuckling, ha ha ha, when they're reading. So that gives me a lot of kick. And that's in a nutshell what I discovered along the way. But yeah, I'm still aspiring to be CEO of at least my own house.
So do you also, Aina, do you also amble around your house?
ये question क्या है? I mean, amble ही करना पड़ेगा सब जगह. Now that I have called myself ambling Indian.
So I'm very keen to understand what are you doing now after that you've written one book? Are you going to have another one following that? Or do you have a blog? Or what is it? How do you pursue your literary instincts, or your expression?
Yeah, I do write on the blog quite often. Corona, maybe I had a Corona series, cooking in Corona times, singing in Corona times. They were all like, I would strongly recommend, please read, because I can't describe everything, right? So please read Cooking in Corona times. They were just like laugh out loud. Apart from all the seriousness of Corona, I had to put it in a little light vein. And it's very strange that I actually relocated back to UK last year during the Corona. I came here on March 5th and then the whole pandemic thing, everything shut down. So I had the most interesting experiences of relocating myself and then the whole family back to UK in Corona times.
So post MBA, you went into funds management,
Yeah.
which is the world of dollar and cents and looking at what is the betas and alphas of returns. And from there now on to risk management as what you are doing. How did you kind of are you finding your current job also as interesting or fascinating as the alphas and betas of funds management?
See, I will simply, risk management is a little bit more scientific, and fund management is very creative. So again, it's better to keep them wrong, because we used to create these stories about this company, which is every company ka ek story likhna hota tha, how it's going to become the next, Reliance. And so I was good at writing stories. So I think that was more creative than obviously risk management, where you're trying to manage risk.
On another front, if we were to compare that ambling Indian and the R.K. Lakshman character, apart from the fact that the ambling women talks and the R.K. Lakshman was a silent spectator, just amused by what is happening around him, what does the ambling Indian, does it also catch up on day-to-day nuances?
Actually, this is a very interesting question, Pradeep. Actually, the ambling Indian is trying to make fun and light of things, but at the same time driving a message. There is an underlying message or a positive twist to it. Like, I wrote about this girl child, some fellow, some Gurjeet Singh, who went around the country cycling, raising awareness about girl children. So through my writing, I'm also trying to drive positive change, obviously in a very small way. So India is an ocean, India is a world of its own, and मेरी writing अगर थोड़ी सी positive change ला सकती है या किसी के चेहरे पे खुशी ला सकती है, तो that itself is a positive change.
Now let's go back to your school days. Which school did you go to?
I went to Mount Carmel School in Nagpur. I studied in Maharashtra in Nagpur.
So you are from the south. You studied school. You had your schooling in Maharashtra. You had your IIT in Delhi, and then somewhere now you in UK. So which other parts of the world have you been to?
So all of us, I'm sure, traveled several countries: Southeast, Japan, so many, Philippines.
Well, on one count, you are absolutely validating what we are observing across the board, that most of the IITians are tending to go in for management or a secondary education after IIT Delhi. Number two is that a lot of Indians or IITians have been following or been ambling around the world. Look at Neeraj also. He's in Africa at the moment, but Neeraj has been in Dubai and has been a whole lot of other, and most of us have kind of been all over. So it's very fascinating to look at and meet alumni from all over. And with that, let's give a big round of applause to Aina. And Aina, we look forward to getting you more involved into GCC. And there's a strong contingent that we have our initiative, which is focused on women and technology. And it's got quite a few members from UK itself. It's got a separate WhatsApp group, a LinkedIn chapter also. I will get you included into that. I think it will be good from both perspective to get your creative, juices flowing into the technology area as well. So once again, yes, you are saying something?
Yeah, just 2 points. I'll just add on one condition, that people do read my blog and my books.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. So,
which I will ping the link to again.
I love it. I love it. Because it'll be absolutely wonderful to look at the humor part, because I still remember those cartoons on Lakshman. So I'm very, very keen to look at, what have you been writing in your blogs. I think all of us. So please do.
MBA किया है तो hardcore sales तो करना ही पड़ेगा. But I'll tell you, the hardest part of writing has been the selling, because it just doesn't just go like that. So Chetan Bhagat became a celebrity, but otherwise you really have to work at getting across your words. So although my book was in the top 10,
you will remember this particular GCC session number 8. And we will also be remembering that this was the time we could contact Aina as if she was a normal person, because from here onwards we are going to make you a star.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't forget to send us the link to your blog. Otherwise, the star will remain in the stars only. So, big round of applause.
Thank you.
Now we move over to Pawan. Pawan,
Pradeep, yeah.
Pawan, again fabulous to catch up with you. So, could you tell us when did you finish your IIT? What did you do after that? How did you land up in UK? Or what has been your journey post IIT?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Pradeep. Hi, ManMohan, and hi, everybody from the IITD. Guys, can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. We don't need any Ainas over here.
Yeah, so thanks for inviting me for this forum. It's really wonderful to see you here. I finished my graduation from IIT in 2000. So 2000 I finished, and I did it from my majors was in textiles, and I somehow was not very keen to go into textiles. I was not sure why and not, but I tried to do what we have as kind of sub major or something minor. I did in computer science, and I landed up my job into coding. Did 3 years of hardcore coding in Bangalore, and that was into financials. I was working for Thomson Financials, and 3 years down the line, I thought, okay, this is as what you rightly said, Pradeep. We all want to kind of have something in us that, okay, we want to do higher education. So I thought, okay, let me do ISB. And early on, I don't know what, I went to ISB, and I graduated from there in 2005, and joined into consulting, and was in India for a few years, but 2007 I kind of was in enterprise technology consulting, and it was a smaller name in the market, HCL. So I was in another big company, but I joined this smaller name, and the idea was because I was not getting much international exposure, and I think that was I joined that firm, and after that, in kind of 2 years, I spent my 2 years literally around in 10 countries. So from Australia, that's what I was telling you, Pradeep, I spent my time in Melbourne, US, and Malaysia, and it was it was a great experience that I gathered over the time, and I had all the ammunition in terms of technology background, and a really good understanding from masters and management, and also the organization not being very, I would say, settled, gave me a lot of exposure into really dealing into a lot of issues with customers and how to manage that. And I kind of gathered that courage, and I started early on in 2010 as an entrepreneur in London. So I thought that, okay, what all knowledge I've gathered into technology, into business, I will start sewing back myself. I got some contracts and everything, and I first put up my first business venture called iXseed Solutions, and I very quickly got some really good contracts from banks, from technology companies, and it was more into consulting, into technology consulting, but it was not expanding. So I was kind of 18 months hitting the road that, okay, what I should be doing, and I moved into that venture into recruitment and staffing, and completely European and US global staffing, and we got a good success there. Built up a double-digit million dollar business, and again, it was into services. A lot of hard work. I'm, of course, by race, I'm Sindhi, so it's always into the race that, okay, have to into business, cannot be cannot work for somebody. So that's the problem in me, I can feel. And around 4 years back, I kind of learned from those services business and built up a product that I wanted to build.
From those services business.
There's some echo going on. I don't know. Are you guys feeling that echo? Is it those can go on mute if somebody is not on mute?
Those can go on mute if he is not on mute.
Spiritual talk going on.
Pradeep, you're on mute.
Yeah, I can. Is it better now? Can I talk?
Yeah, back. Now,
Yeah.
I've muted everybody. Pawan, back to you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Pradeep. So yeah, so very quickly, I'll just wrap it up. I started a product business. It's called, it's into HR AI. It's called Sniper AI, the tool. And, we have been very recently working with a number of global firms like Capgemini, Atos, Infosys, NRG. So like a lot of FTSE 100 customers that we have. And the solution is basically very apt at the current market, post-COVID era, especially when organizations are trying to ramp up very, very actively, and they're looking for solutions that can help them to do the things in an automated fashion rather than doing it manually.
Let me ask you one question at
month,
this particular point in time, Pawan. If there was a triangular cricket match between India, UK, and Australia, you were born in India, you worked in Australia, and you're living in UK, whom would you root for?
India, of course. I every day deliberate that. Can you hear me?
Absolutely can hear you. Absolutely can.
Yeah. Like
Now,
my son actually plays. I tell you, like I have an irony in my house. My son plays for cricket team in England for a county cricket, and he wants to play for the country, but he says I don't want to play for England. And we go for England-India match, and we don't know which side we sit in. So yeah, we definitely India is at the core of the heart. Yeah.
And that is where the emotional connect comes in, and that is where that will always remain. Now, another question is, if you had another opportunity to live your life again, would you go through corporate life or would you be an entrepreneur?
No, I think I would definitely go through the corporate life. That pain, there is no gain without the pain. That's what I should say. You need to go through that rigor. Every bit of what you go through is an experience, I would say. Even if it's a fail or it's a pass, it's an experience. And I would say that the corporate experience gives you how to kind of look at the things from a larger perspective and really see that, okay, you can actually achieve that.
So, and also the corporate salary pays the bills. While you think about what all or it may not pay the bills, but yeah, it pays part of the bills.
Yeah, you can. Like I would say sometimes we get very like when I completely agree with Pradeep with you, but few of my friends say that okay, but I see that it's a very myopic thought, and yeah, in hindsight I can say that it can be possible, but if you have a vision, if you want to achieve something, you can garner the resources. That's what I can see now.
So, in your own business at the moment or in your enterprise, are you the only founder or you got co-founders also?
No, I have one co-founder. He's from IIT Delhi, no, IIT Khanna, and also based in UK. Yusuf, yeah, his name is Yusuf.
So some birds tweet also told me at some point in time you also had your wife as a partner.
Yes. So I have, as I was telling you, like I have multiple businesses. So the first business that I started on, I should say that when I was sowing the seeds of my second business, I wanted somebody very, very able as well as very trustworthy, and I somehow convinced my wife. She was the sales director at HP. That this is something you should do, and you can do much better than me. And she agreed to it, and now I can see that that business is also kind of 5 times or 4 to 5 times grown. So yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I say that every IITian is an individual by themselves. We have clear two perspectives. We have one where in Pawan's case, his wife joined him, but then later on took over the business and threw him out. and make him a silent partner. Pawan was happy just to get the dividends. On the other hand, we had Aina, who's happy to let her husband boss over her. So, I love the individuality, love it. Now tell me, in your own business, what is your vision?
I think the vision that we see is we want to get the best, I would say, professional satisfaction for every individual. And by that, what I mean is there should be the right job for every person. And our solution and our organization is every day trying to build technology solutions for the same. Because yeah.
So where are you in the journey? Are you in the growth phase at the moment? Are you in the consolidation phase? Are you in the survival phase? Which phase are you in?
I would say, look, survival is an everyday affair. I was when I was hearing Harbir other day when he was telling me the story of his Africa days. Startup is a very intrigue journey, I would say, but we are in the growth stage. I would say, we have more than 15 clients now globally, and it's a very apt time. We have survived the pandemic, which was a very bad time for a hiring based solution. But now, from the last, I would say, 2 quarters, it's been real madness in the market. Everybody is hiring, and they don't want to, do it in the old-fashioned way. They want to do through technology. So we are getting too much of really good traction, and we are kind of raising money for the growth now. So we are in the growth phase, I would say.
Fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
I am looking forward to getting you more and more involved into GCC and potentially look at this alumni base of 54,000 people or professionals, as I would prefer to call them. We build up a community of practice around what you are doing. As I mentioned to you, there are already within the current GCC other alumni from different parts of the world who are doing something similar or maybe complementary. It would be worthwhile to connect up and think and build a community. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a fabulous round of applause to Pawan.
Thank you, Pradeep, for inviting me for this.
Now we move on to the next person, which was actually Nitesh, but Nitesh has had a personal emergency at home, so he's taken a rain check and we'll have him at another late. But just for information, Nitesh is a professor at London Business School, or London School of Business, Well, anyway, we will have to wait for another time to know more about him. But let's go across to Harbir Nat. Harbir Nat again has been, having a very, very interesting journey in different parts of the world as well as in different ecosystems. I would prefer to call it that way. And at the moment, he is involved in the next growth story. We have 7.2 billion people worldwide, out of which 4 billion people have access to internet. So we have clearly another 3.2 billion people approximately who are going to be taking the technology leap forward. And he is involved into one of them. Please give a big round of applause to Harbir. Harbir, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Pradeep. Can everybody hear me?
Absolutely. Are you talking to us from Nigeria? Or are you happily ensconced in your office or home in London?
I'm very happily ensconced in my home and in my office. I'm living in Surrey in UK, and in my entire career, this is the most beautiful office I've had. In front of me is a bay window looking onto my garden. And, I've never had this opportunity in my working life where I work with all the birds coming to my gardens while I'm working. And
tell me, do you do the gardening yourself or do you have somebody bringing to the launch?
Unfortunately, I do it the lazy way. I do have somebody to do it, so I would like to do it. The problem in my life, as in everybody's life, is you realize very late in life, actually, the most valuable commodity which you have is time. And that is still, I'm trying to figure out how to use my time. So there's so many things to do in the world, there's just too little time. So
I
that's
couldn't agree
unfortunately
more with
Pradeep.
you. So tell me, when did you pass out of IIT? And I have been actually quite fascinated by the different ecosystems and different parts of the world that you've been working in. So over to you.
Yeah, so I passed out of IIT in 1989, and I did electrical engineering. I was in Jwalamukhi Hostel, and I think this is like fascinating for an opportunity to hear everybody's stories. It's really nice. I think for myself, there's a song by Baz Luhrmann, which some of you must have heard sometime, that says, "Wear sunscreen." If you haven't, you should hear the song and read the lyrics. But in the lyrics, there's a line which says, "Most of your choices in life are half chance," right? And to a very large extent, that's how life has been. Honestly, if you lead the life which most of us lead, once we get into IIT and begin our journeys, we have very little to complain about, because the toughest part was perhaps getting into IIT. There are tough parts which happen later, but you catapulted yourself onto a track which leads to most of us to very interesting and enjoyable lives. There are always personal tragedies, that's a bit different. Anyway, I got into IIT at the second attempt, and the reason why I got into IIT in the second attempt is I had a schoolmate who sat next to me in school, and he got into IIT in the first attempt, and I figured out, if that guy can do it, so can I. And I applied myself. Okay. That was the driver for me to get in. I think Nitish mentioned it later, or maybe Pawan, you mentioned it in our last conversation. This whole business of us being very competitive, and IIT was good fun. But there were just too many bright people in IIT. I mean, I didn't feel, I was what was traditionally called a chucky. I got by. I didn't have any dangers of dropping out of IIT, but at the same time, there were many, many Mahayatis in my course in electrical engineering. So after that, I somehow sat for IIM Calcutta, IIM exams, not really wanting to go. I really wanted to do a job. I got TISCO, I got L&T in my offers. I was very keen to go to TISCO. I had gone there for their final interview. And there was, the first time in my life, I had a hot water shower in the graduate trainee hostel. And everywhere where I went, all the waiters, which they served excellent dinner, and all the waiters were calling us sir, sir. And just the feeling of being somebody was so immense that I was very keen to go and work as a graduate engineering trainee in TISCO Jamshedpur. But I got into IIM, and I was not very sure I would get in again. So I said, I can't take this chance off, right? So I went to IIM. There again is a question of your choices. Basically in my time from IIM, you could do three things. You could go into IT, or you could do finance, or you could do marketing, right? In IIT, I was so scarred by the experience of my batchmates, which were just all so much brighter than I was. So I said, that's one area I'm not going, because when I go out and try to fight in the world with these guys, I'm going to lose again. So it was a choice between marketing and finance. I got into Unilever, which was the best, really the best marketing brand, which comes to IIM Calcutta. And they sent me on a sales training to Mumbai, which was one of the most sought after sales training postings. And they made me sell a coffee called Rich Cafe, right? All I realized at the end of it is that I didn't want to do marketing or sales. That was something of what I learned in my summer training. So I chose finance. And then somewhere in my journey in finance, India started awarding the licenses for mobile telephones. I happened to be in Amsterdam talking to the guru in ABN AMRO. I was in ABN AMRO at that point in time, the head of ABN AMRO's telecom financing group. And he asked me a question. He says, these mobile phones, licenses have been given, what do you think about them? And there were 4 sets of licenses, 8 licenses, 2 in each city, 4 cities. I scratched my head and I said, Delhi, Bombay, they'd be good. But Calcutta and Madras, I'm not very sure whether these guys will make money. And he looked back and he spoke to me and said, you know what I think? I said, no, tell me. And he said, these are licenses to print money. That one sentence triggered an interest in telecom financing for me. And the more I studied it, the more intrigued and interested I got. I also found that my IIT training actually helped me, because what I realized is that once you get out of IIT, the competition just drops off a cliff. I was expecting in real life to meet all the guys who sat next to me in my class in IIT. But when you go out in the real world, the competition just drops off a cliff. And I found that my training in IIT and in an areas banking put me head and shoulders about understanding the industry, which I was trying to finance over everybody else. So anyway, I got into that, and I haven't got off doing telecom investments and financing still then. This has started in 1994. For a long time, I was a banker. I worked in that area in Delhi, in Singapore, in Amsterdam, in London, all for ABN AMRO Bank. And then ABN AMRO Bank kind of collapsed on itself after Royal Bank of Scotland bought it. In that, one of my clients came to me and said they have a failing company in Portugal, which did a technology called CDMA 450, which is CDMA at 450 megahertz band. It was a non-standard technology in Europe, and it was a non-standard band for cellular or mobile. But giving a banker an opportunity to become a CEO of a telecom company is just too much to resist, even though any logical, sensible person would have said, no, this is a failing company, it'll ruin my career. But just the fact that you can be a CEO, all of my life, I had made business plans, project plans, credit papers. That was a chance to actually go and run something. So I went to a country which I really didn't know. I didn't speak the language. I thought I knew a lot, but actually I knew very little. Right? My knowledge was very theoretical as a banker. And when I got into really working, you realize there's so many things people have never talked to you or told you about, right? So to cut a long story short, we shut down the company after 2.5 years. But I went into that company as a child, a naive child, though I was the age of, I think, 40 then. And I came out as a wizened adult, right?
So would it be correct to say that one small step was a giant leap for Harbir?
Absolutely. The kind of learning I got in those 2.5 years, I would really had wished that it had come much earlier to me in life. That's all I can wish, right? It was hard. It's not easy to lay off 100 people in a recessionary environment. It's not easy when you can't pay your staff salary at the end of the month. It's not easy when your secretary comes to you and says, Harbir, I can't pay the mortgage. And I ask her, what's your mortgage? She says, 100 euros. I say, you can't pay 100 euros? She says, no. Hey, what do you have in your bank? She says, zero, right?
My God.
And that is kind of situation. And she's a secretary, and she drives every day in an Audi to your second hand, of course, but she drives there. So it taught me a lot, but it was also very depleting to my bank balance. And also, generally, I wanted an easier way in life. So I then made my pendulum swing to the opposite direction. I decided that I wanted to get back to emerging markets where there was underlying current, which you can flow with the current, not against the current. Remember that this is a period of 2010, 2012, where Europe was in a recessionary area and Portugal was one of the most worst hit recessionary countries after Greece. So it was really fighting against the current to try to set up, to resuscitate a failing business. So I went to the World Bank, IFC, went to Africa, had a gold-plated job, tax-free salary, diplomatic number plates, flew business class or first class most of the time. I had no pressure on me to do any kind of work. In fact, the only problem they had with me, which was different, was that, I tried to do work, which was not a good thing to do, right? So, but it was wonderful. I learned a lot. I learned about Africa. As you said, Pradeep, there's an amazing opportunity there. But I wanted always to be an entrepreneur. That's something I always wanted to do. It's just that I come from a background where, I have to make my ends meet myself. There are no, rich dads to fund me. And so I had certain obligations towards my family. Pawan says that, you can make it happen. Yes, I know, Pawan, you can make it happen. But the problem is, you cannot really drag, your family into your sacrifices. So if you're going to drag your wife, your kids into the sacrifices, it's a difficult question. I mean, to make it happen earlier, I would have to pull my kids out of private school and things like that, which I didn't feel I had a right to do. But anyway, I was 50 then. I had paid my mortgage. So house was secure. My kids were out of private school. I didn't have UK private school fees to pay. And my bank balance had been tidied up once again with the tax-free dollars, which IFC paid me. So I went into setting up data centers. It's kind of a no-brainer kind of bet, because you spend like half an hour on Google, who will tell you that, data is growing through the roof. You just had to look at India, what had happened to India, and you just know that this path will follow. So I went on that journey, got hold of a person from the industry, partnered with him. We raised about $10 million. We now have 2 data centers. It's a 50-person company. We have a data center in Ghana. We have a data center in Kenya. We are on the cusp of closing our Series B, after which we will be a kind of a $50 million valuation company. It's very, very minor compared to what all the greats from IIT have achieved, but it doesn't matter. For me, the real success is the fact that you take a concept on a PowerPoint and you convert it into a reality. And one thing I've learned today is that what the world really needs is jobs, right? And for every kind of job application which I've sent out, either in IFC or in my job, it's amazing amount of applicants you get. Then everybody needs jobs. And in my philosophy, I'm a bit of a capitalist. The people who can create these jobs are entrepreneurs. They are the people who create these jobs. And it's a very rare skill. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. I think I have it. I think I've proved it to myself I have it. So it gives me a kick. On level of achievement, these are small, but on a personal basis, they're very, 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 very gratifying.
You had stints with IFC,
yes,
which is a kind of a bureaucracy.
Yes.
You had stints running a telecom company in Europe.
Yes.
A company which is about to go under.
Yes.
You had stints in a high growth industry like telecom, and you were in investment banking at the right time, at the right place.
Yes.
And you are an entrepreneur now.
Yes.
Which out of these 4, if you had the choice, which would you have spent most of your time?
Without doubt, being an entrepreneur. But I don't know whether I would have been ready for being an entrepreneur if I started right from the beginning. That's what I think I spent far too long as a banker. I wouldn't give it a 20-year run, definitely. But nonetheless, I do respect that when you join a large institution, it teaches you a few things. It sets a few standards. Yeah. And, one of the reasons why I can do the job I can do today is because, the experience I got in IFC and ABN AMRO. So
tell me that your focus is on Africa. So do you travel? Of course, in the pandemic world, travel is a bit of a no-no. But otherwise, do you spend a lot of time in Africa?
So before the pandemic, I was spending about 50% of my time, right, in Africa. But, there's another reason why I did this is that I wanted to, another drive for being an entrepreneur is to shape your own work environment. right? So when I was a banker, I live in Surrey. I had to live in Surrey because my kids were here. I wanted to give them space. I didn't want them to grow up in London, a very constrained environment, and we had a limited budget. But I was running a commuter life. So every day I was spending 2.5 hours on the train, and I didn't want to do it forever. And there's a quality of life cost to it. And I always thought that it's all very unnecessary. So before the pandemic, before the pandemic, I've designed my company to be run on a virtual basis, that I can work from anywhere and anybody can work from anywhere. In fact, the pandemic gave us a very interesting lesson. I was able to force the philosophy I had personally also onto my company, or at least it allowed me to do so. So
but
most
you
of my
have taken
company
me
now work
rather
virtually.
seriously. What I was more trying to get at was that, do you have any of those luxury villas in Lagos or some interesting places like that that we can also use, you know?
I would recommend everybody to just use Airbnb. the economically, a second home doesn't make any sense.
No, I agree with you. And Neeraj, one of our GCC members, is based in Africa. So it'll be good for you to connect up with Harbir.
Yes, sir, definitely. We'll connect with Harbir.
Neeraj.
Harbir, for your information, I'm based in Lagos, Victoria Island.
Oh, okay.
So he says that he's put up his house as Airbnb, you know. So with that, a big round of applause, and thank you so much, Harbir. It's been really lovely to have you over, and I'm looking forward to, and I will be having a follow-up call with all of you from UK's to see that how do we take it further and we start building mini communities around the world that you are doing, because end of the day we've got to kind of really dovetail what we are doing professionally or what we like doing with the IIT Delhi platform that we are building. So
thank you, Pradeep.
Look forward to in getting you more involved into that. So big round of applause for Harbir. And we now, as we are ending, we've had different models. We've had the 3 model of Raju Varanasi, where in the end you end up into some spiritual phase. We also have so many other models where somewhere down the line you give up all these worldly stuff and all that. But here I would like to present to you our spiritual guru, Shri Vijay, who is also one of the ambassadors for GCC UK, to sum up the UK team as well as to give us a few mantras. So please give a big round of applause to Vijay. Over to you, Vijay.
Namaskar. Thanks, Pradeep. We really had a wonderful session, and I must congratulate Aina, Harbir, and Pawan for their inspiring journey. They have really done great, even in COVID times. And also, I was of building the community team, and we also have created a LinkedIn group for IIT Delhi UK alumni. So please feel free to be active, and we have a lot of programs and activities coming. And yes, this is interesting that I was completing 6 decades of my journey. In next 10 days, I will be 60 years. And half of my journey, more than 3 decades, I have actively devoted to the Indian Wellness Academy, which is promoting health and well-being projects in UK and EU. And it has been very inspiring and rewarding journey. I have shared some of the links. I gave few talks last year, especially I remember I IIT Delhi Fest on 27th December 2020, where we were discussing in detail how to be the author of your own health in the new normal in the COVID times. And especially in that context, I remember that the mental health issues really has now taken the forefront. And just to share that although all of us are doing quite well, but we are not aware that this mental health issues are now taking a big toll, not only on the younger generation, on the adults, on the elderly, but among even professionals. Like recently, one of our IIT Bombay friend who works with Goldman Sachs in London had very difficult time and was in hospital for more than 2 months, and now he is released and going back to India to his family to settle and start a new life. So what I was thinking was that of course today is not that much time available, we are already short of time. I was planning to do a session on mental health and trust because nowadays we have seen that after this COVID pandemic, the people are really struggling with the issues of anxiety, fear, depression. So I have seen in my research work that the proper use of mantras can be very dealing with the mental health problems. So just to give you a short experience, what I would suggest is that sit straight with your spine and close your eyes. And one of the key problem with our monkey mind is that it is full of thoughts, it's full of anxiety, it is full of fears. So how to create a thoughtless state, a peaceful and tranquil state of mind, we'll try to practice in this very short practice. Start observing your breath, pay attention, sound, so, and when you are exhaling, there's a very subtle sound, hum. So continuously, non-stop your journey, you make this so, hum, so, hum. This is the divine song we all sing. Doesn't matter man, woman, country, any religion. And just dissolve your mind into this sound of the breath, the soham sound. And when you feel that your mind is getting dissolved into this sound of soham, drop this sound and just simply wait for the next thought. And see what you are experiencing now. When you are waiting for your next thought, you will enter into a thoughtless state. And to enrich this experience of thoughtless state, You can also add smile to your inhale, leading you to a peaceful and tranquil state of the mind. The another mantra with health issues is the Om
In the
sound,
interest
the
of time,
cosmic sound, the soul sound.
Vijay, in the interest of time, I think we will have a separate session where we will have, going through this in much more detail. I think this is very useful, especially in the pandemic times, and I really appreciate that you put together and gave us this version. So thank you very much, and I look forward to getting you more involved. Not only you are doing a great job in terms of building a community, but in terms of the spiritual work that you are doing and to get the message across. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause for Vijay and for the work that he's been doing for so many years. So thank you once again. Now, the last thing that I want to do today is
Thank you very much.
last thing that I want to do today is to present to you Dinesh. Dinesh from Montreal in Canada. Dinesh, are you there? Dinesh is the one who is organizing the session of 1967 batch next Saturday. We've got a very, very interesting set of people. Yesterday had a look at the various, the number of people that Dinesh has got together, and I was absolutely blown away. So, Dinesh, I look forward to the session of 1967, and thereafter on 25th, a session by Kailash Hostel or the female alumni, the girls alumni of IIT Delhi. With that, ladies and gentlemen, a good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night to all of you. Till next time.